Sir, நீங்க audible தான். Andrew sir audible தான்.
Hello.
Sir, கேக்குது sir.
Okay. Thank you, King sir. Very good afternoon, all of you. I am Dr. R.P. Andrew Kumar, coordinator of Software Cell, St. Xavier's Catholic College of Engineering, Nagarkoil. On behalf of St. Xavier's Catholic College of Engineering, I invite all of you for this webinar. We started this webinar for the last 2 weeks. We are continuously running this webinar in various different topics. We are conducting this webinar. From this week onwards, we plan to have a super session. That is, in weekly, one day will be a super session, and the industrial people will be addressing in the super session in the latest technologies. So like that, today is the first super session of our series. This is the first super session we are organizing from this webinar series. For this super session, we normally invite the industrial people. Today also the guest speaker is an industrial people. Before introducing him, the general instruction to you, already the certificate were issued for all the webinars conducted till yesterday. Then please mute your audio throughout the webinar so that there won't be any disturbances in the presentation. And at the end of the session, you can raise your queries through chat window, or you can unmute your audio and you can ask the questions. Please mute your video to reduce the bandwidth usage. With this small instruction, I am introducing the guest speaker of today's session. Today's guest speaker is Engineer Vimal. I am happy to introduce him because he is our alumni. He is the alumni from CSE department. He studied here from 2014 to 2018, and now he is working in various sectors. He is acting as a developer. Vimal is a developer and streamer on Twitch. He is a freelancer on Fiverr. He is a content creator on YouTube. He is working as online tutor. He is acting as a technical supporter and advisor. He is working as a entrepreneur. He is a founder, chairman and CEO of Tamilan community, and he is providing various technical support to around 12 different private organizations from USA, UK, Canada, and Australia. Before starting the session, I had an interaction with him. For the past 24 hours, he didn't sleep. After this webinar only, he is planning to sleep for the day, because he is in touch with various companies and guiding them, providing technical support. He is having 5-star rating on Fiverr, and he has hosted more than 60 international webinars till now. So today he will be addressing us on the topic fighting future pandemics with blockchain. So with this brief introduction, I invite Engineer Vimal to address the gathering. Vimal, please.
Okay. Hello.
Vimal, yeah.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yeah, audible, Vimal.
Okay.
Audible.
So, hi, hello, everyone. It's a pleasure. The pleasure is mine to actually speak in front of you. I have seen a lot of staffs who have taught me in the past few years, and I'm really glad that I'm here right now. And I'm totally glad that I have a lot of support from our admin from our college, and I am very happy that he's here right now. So, with this in mind, I'm just going to explain what I'm going to explain to you today. So the main thing about the concept for today is we are using blockchain technology to fight future pandemics. How can we actually fight a pandemic with a blockchain? How does that stuff work? And what is a blockchain? Everything will be explained in my presentation. And this is my very first time in which I am actually speaking in English. So far my presentation will be only in Tamil. So far I'm a YouTuber and I'm a streamer and other stuff as well. But the thing is, this is my first time speaking in English with this audience. So, and for the past 24 hours, I didn't sleep, so it may be a little bit difficult for me. But if you feel any kind of difficulties, please tell that to me via the chat. So that's being said, let's go to the content directly without any wasting anyone's time. I'm just switching to the presentation for now. Okay, can everyone see the presentation right now? Okay.
Vimal, visible.
Okay. So from here, so the first thing about this presentation is we are fighting future pandemics. So you know exactly what a pandemic is. If a disease that spreads globally, it's called a pandemic. And we are going to fight the pandemic with the technology called blockchain. You could have already heard the technology. For example, you could have heard Bitcoin, Ethereum, and other stuff. So it's similar to, cryptocurrency is an application of blockchain. So we will be discussing briefly about what a blockchain is. So my chat is hidden right now. So if you have any doubts, you can leave that in the chat. So once the presentation is over, I can actually respond to your chat. And at the end of this session, we can actually talk to each other and have this started out. So let's go with this overview. So the overview, the 90% of this webinar is about blockchain. The last 10% is only about the application of this blockchain to solve the problem of a pandemic. So let's get started. So this is the overview. We are going to see the existing systems that we have right now, and we will be discussing about blockchain and the cryptocurrency, what is mining, and what is a pandemic, and how it is actually spreading, and how to actually prevent it, and how we are actually going to apply the blockchain technology to prevent pandemics in the future. Because I also wanted to quote you something right now. So in 2015, Bill Gates, Bill Gates from Microsoft, right? So he actually hosted a webinar, and he just explained it clearly that we can survive World War III, but we can never survive another epidemic or pandemic because we are not prepared for that. And the exact same thing happened like 5 years after that. So we are not prepared like 5 years ago, and we are not prepared right now, and we will now never be prepared if we don't use any technology to actually assist us in the process. So let's get started. Let's get to the basic of this structure. You must be wondering, why are we dealing with client server here? We should be learning about blockchain, right? But the basic problem is I did my final year project on cryptocurrency. But the thing at that time is it was very difficult to actually explain that to the tutors and the guide and to the externals that there is a technology called blockchain. It was very difficult, and it was like out of the league because no one ever heard about this concept like 3 or 4 years ago. So it was like very difficult, and most of the people have no idea yet. So I'm just going to explain it clearly how our normal system works and how we should be switching to a peer-to-peer network or something like a blockchain, and how everything stuff works. So the normal work structure, the normal client server architecture is a client. Maybe the client can be a tablet, or mobile phone, or a computer, or a workstation, whatever it can be. It sends a request via internet connection to a server which is located far away from, in a geographic location. So once the server receives the request, it actually responds to the request with some kind of HTML files, or some kind of some kind of files or something. So the user gets the files and he is satisfied. But there is a problem with this. Whenever this server, for example, let's assume that this is a Google server, and if 10 million people access this server at the same time, the server can handle only up to a particular persons, because outside of this capacity, for example, it has a limited CPU, it has a limited RAM, and it has a limited amount of cache and other storage devices. So this is the capacity of this device is limited, and whenever a ton of device get attached, for example, at a peak time, the server gets overloaded and it may crash, and it may never recover from the crash. Sometimes it's very fatal, and people working in the network field could have known the severity of this issue. So the disadvantages is from the server load. The server load can cost the data corruptions can occur, data tampering can occur. For example, consider all your financial data is stored inside a bank, and what if the bank is hacked? If someone hacks the bank and if change the value from your you have like 10 lakhs in your account, and what if someone change the account to zero? You lost all your money. There is no way to verify what was done, and maybe we could have like backups, but backups can be reliable only up to a point. So there is no guarantee that we could actually revert everything. So that's like the technology. When we are trying to use technology, we should also learn to live along the failures that the technology can cause. So the final thing is robustness. What it means is, if the server crashes, it's crashed. The users may not be able to access the site anymore. So it's like unreliable. So in order to get a good network, this should be satisfied. So that's exactly why companies like Facebook, Google's, and other companies have like 20,000 plus data centers across the world to actually distribute the workload. And if you can see at that, like if Facebook has like 20,000 plus servers, it increases the cost like too much. You can imagine a server, the cost of a single server can range from lakhs to crores. And if it's like 20,000 and each should have, I mean, like the maintenance cost, the powering cost, the internet cost, it's like a ton of loads. So let's talk about the cases. We are all, I mean, like we are all familiar with this pandemic right now. When the initial lockdown began, majority of the platforms crashed, including Steam. Steam is a gaming platform. Discord is a community platform. Xbox is a gaming platform, and Twitch is a live streaming platform. Everything crashed because a lot of users suddenly started using these platforms, and it's like the main reason for the problem is this: the servers is limited, and suddenly a ton of people had no work to do, and they were like sitting in the home, and they just trying to stream content or play something, and that causes the overload. So we can never expect what's going on with this. So that's exactly why we are going to do with this peer-to-peer network. So the peer-to-peer network is not a new technology. It's like it's since the dark ages. It's like since the age of dinosaurs or something. So this was like implemented in the 1980s or something. I'm not exactly sure the year. But the thing is, instead of having a centralized server at the middle, the workload is handled by the clients itself. Each client does some part. So it's like the workload is shared. So as soon as some extra clients join in, they also provide some work to the network, so that their workload is shared equally throughout the network, and the stability of the network is maintained. So this is a concept. So you should be really aware of the fact that there is a technology called peer-to-peer network, and this is this is also implied in our blockchain. So I hope no one has any issues with this. And next thing, so we have already seen some peer-to-peer network kind of stuffs in our real life. For example, you could have seen something like this. Do you know what this means? Exactly what this is mean is, imagine you are taking in class, and the bell suddenly rings and you rough the board and just leave the class. Some of the students have the copies of the notes, and some of the students does not have the copy of the notes. So what they usually do is they just copy from the first benches who usually have the notes, and they just write it down from the first benches. So that's exactly this network works. Even if the server crashes, if the one node crashes, there is no problem at all. We can copy the data from multiple servers, and we can still have the originality of the content. The integrity will be maintained. That's exactly the concept of peer-to-peer network. And let's go to the next thing, the torrenting. You must have heard about this site, Tamil Rockers, Iffy Torrents, Pirate Bay. Everything depends upon the fact that, like the underlying technology of peer-to-peer connections. So basically, you are not new to peer-to-peer technology. That's what I'm trying to say right here. Okay, next let's go to blockchain. So what is a blockchain? Generally speaking, if a block is connected with the chain, it's called blockchain. That's it. That's a simple concept. But the blockchain really is much more complicated. But I'll try to explain that in a very simple step. Blockchain was invented by Satoshi Nakamoto. No one has any idea who he is. He never publicly identified himself as someone, because he was like a super developer. He proposed the concept, everything. It was like 2009. It was 2009. Back in those days, he actually developed the concept for the Bitcoin. You could have heard this term. You should have heard this term if you are like in a tech industry. So Bitcoin is like a really big name, and he was the one behind it, and no one exactly know who this guy is. This could be Bill Gates. This could be Elon Musk. This could be anywhere. Anyone. No one could have identified him exactly. So that's the point. And let's talk about the blocks right now. Okay. So let's just study the anatomy of the blockchain. So each blockchain has little components called the blocks. For example, in a blockchain, each individual items is called blocks. That you can actually put that in such a way. So each block has a data, a hash, and a hash of the previous block. What does data means? So the data typically means any data. It can be a number, it can be a variable, it can be the amount of money you have in your bank, it can be your name, it can be your address, it can be your profile information. Anything can be the data. What is a hash? A hash is something. For example, if you have a file, you can get the hash of the file. So if you modify the content of the file, the hash changes. So it's like a fingerprint. So each time when you you just, even if you modify a dot in the file, the hash changes. It's like a digital fingerprint. So each fingerprint is unique, and you cannot what's it called, replicate a fingerprint. You can't find two people with the same fingerprint, right? Exactly the same concept. And this thing has the previous block's hash as well. Okay, let's just put it this way. Just give me a second. Okay, so for the Bitcoin block, usually the Bitcoin has the data block as the from address, the to address, and the amount of Bitcoins it has in the what's it called, the account. So this is usually stored in a block. And next, I told you about this hash block. And if someone tries to change the value, even if like a small dot to it, the hash changes, and all the subsequent blocks will be altered. And I hope I should add to this next. Just give me 1 second. Okay, if you can look at this, each block is linked. Each block is linked. So for example, this block, okay, for example, this block is here, block number 1, block number 2, and block number 3. So the block number 1 has this hash as 1Z8F. So the second block has the previous hash as this number. The third block has the previous block as this number. So if you try to modify a small dot from this file, the hash of this file changes. So when this block verifies the data, the hash will not match. So this node will be like unverified. So that what it means is someone is trying to tampering the data. So we won't accept this modification. So we will be accepting 1Z8F. We will not be accepting any other hash values. So that's exactly what this means. So you can ask, so is there any way to actually hack this process? Yeah, there is a way to actually hack the blockchain, but it is like very, very, very difficult. The reason for that being is, consider like 100 people are using this blockchain. 100 people are using this blockchain. You must hack 51 persons at the same time to actually tamper with the data. So if you consider with this world, I mean like in a global scale, in 2020, the total ledger size of the blockchain went from nearly 30 GB to 200 GB. So it's like 200 GB of content. You should be you should be having enough processing power to hack nearly at least 100 GB of data. That's like impossible. You don't have that kind of processing power at your home. You will never have it. Botnets never have it. Even Amazon or Facebook or Google never combined, never has this hashing power. So it's impossible to hack blockchain at this time. I mean, like I'm talking about Bitcoin's blockchain. So let's go with one more step. So if someone actually tries to make this thing exactly, I mean, like if someone actually tries to replicate something, they should actually manage to hack 51% of the Bitcoin miners at the same time. So that's like really impossible, and they cannot do it. So this is a normal workflow. So how do they usually verify the process, verify the transaction? What really happens? That's a really very good question. And they use something called as a proof of work. And I'll explain what is a proof of work. For example, this is a guy. This guy is actually trying to send money to this guy. This is self-explanatory. Jack wants to send money to Elsa. So what he does is he just trying to send money to Elsa via the Bitcoin network. So that's how it's there. So what really happens is the requested transaction is sent to the peer-to-peer network. So this is the blockchain network actually. So it is sent to the network, and there are a lot of computers connected to the blockchain network, and they actually verify the process. And once the process is verified, this process is called the proof of work. So once this process is verified, it is added to the block, and once this block is added, the money will be actually sent to the Elsa. So this is the normal typical procedure of how a blockchain works. So you can actually see if someone is actually, you can ask, okay, imagine just rare case. Imagine I have like a super fast computer, and what if I try to hack everyone at the same time? It's still impossible, because it will take, no matter how powerful you have, computer you have it, you need 10 minutes to actually find the next block. That's it. Even if you have like a very high computer, it doesn't matter at all. It takes 10 minutes for the next block to be actually mined. So it's like it is a way to actually limit the process of DDoS. Have you heard about this term called DDoS? distributed denial of service. Usually, when servers, for example, if you don't like Facebook, you can actually program a lot of botnets, and you can try accessing Facebook at the same time, so that the Facebook server can get crowded and it can crash. So that's called a DDoS attack, and you can't do DDoS attacks on exactly on blockchain. The reason for that is there is 10 minutes wait time for each and every block, so it's pointless to actually do this. And they actually verify the process called, whenever you are trying to do a request, they will ask for you, okay, show me the proof of work that you have done. And since the botnets don't have a proof of work, they will not be registered at all, then the blockchain network will be healthy forever, like forever. So that's the thing. Okay, let's consider the peer-to-peer network. It's like each and every student, imagine each and everyone is like a computer, and each one is trying to add a block to their network. So whenever they join to the blockchain for the very first time, they download the complete ledger. So you may be wondering, what does the blockchain actually contain? So the blockchain exactly contains the send address, the from address, to address, the amount of transactions done within the blockchain network from 2009 to 2020. It's like 11 years of transactions. It's all data are available to the public, but it's encrypted. So I mean, like, you have the data, but you can't access the data because it's like encrypted. So that's how the Bitcoin and the blockchain works. You will have access to the data, but you can never I mean, like, you can never use it to for any other personal information. You can't find any sensitive information from that. That's the thing. Okay, so now whenever someone finds a block, for example, let's consider that I'll just explain how Bitcoin is mined in the later section of this tutorial, webinar. But the thing is, when someone actually finds a block, each and everyone will verify the process on their end. Okay, this hash actually matches the hash with this previous block. So, okay, I'll accept this, I'll accept this, and I'll accept this, and I'll accept both. 4 of them accept this network. I mean, like this block. So even if someone does not accept this, and if majority of the people accept this block, then the block will be accepted, and he has no other options except to accept this block. So it may sound a little bit complicated for you right now, but I'll just explain how it's usually done. Let's go to the procedure. Okay, now let's talk about the cryptocurrency. You already heard about this word called cryptocurrency, because I told you like 5 times ago, and then you could have already heard Bitcoin, which is I told you already. And we also have Ethereum, Ethercash, and Bitcoin, a lot of stuff. There are literally 700 plus cryptocurrencies. You can actually go to the Bitcoin's official site and clone the repo. And if you are like a very good programmer, you can create your own cryptocurrency. You can actually, I mean, like, you can actually do that. So it's like each and every developer who are really interested in this blockchain technology has created their own cryptocurrency. That's the general point of this. And most of these people started investing money on Bitcoins instead of stocks right now. So it's like a unpredictable market, but still people are using this to trade a lot of stuff. Let's let's talk about what is mining. So I just told a few minutes ago that they usually do this process which is called mining. So mining is typically like you know about this gold mining, right? So whenever a miner is trying to find gold, he will be doing some kind of work, and he will be getting gold as the return. So Bitcoin is considered as digital gold. So it's like they have this process called as mining. So what is mining exactly? So what is mining? So the thing is, you are actually trying to do a transaction. Imagine you are trying to do a transaction with someone, and this transaction will be handled by a set of computers in the blockchain network. And the first computer that actually does this transaction and verifies everything will be granted 12.5 Bitcoins. What it means is, whenever you solve a block, you will be rewarded 12.5 Bitcoins. I think 1 Bitcoin is around 6 lakhs right now. So if you actually manage to mine a Bitcoin right now, you will be getting like you can actually become a millionaire in just a fraction of a second. So that's how this thing works. But it's very impossible. But it's very difficult to find a block right now, because the difficulty has been like it's like too complicated. And for the Ethereum, the block reward is like 3 Ethereum. So whenever you find a block for Ethereum, you just get 3 Ethereum in return. And for the Bitcoin, it's like 10 minutes delay. For Ethereum, it's like 30 seconds or something lesser than that. So if you are like trying to mine something, you should probably go with Ethereum. But right now, everyone is in a pandemic, and you should never try mining anything because of the limited resources we have right now. Okay, next let's talk about the advantages of cryptocurrency. So the major advantages of cryptocurrency is the security. I told you already, if there are like 10 crore people in the blockchain network, you must hack 50 crore plus one computers at the same time to actually modify the transaction, which is impossible. I mean, like, if you have one computer, how many computers you can hack at the same time? Maybe 10, maybe 20, maybe 100. But what about this remaining computers? It's impossible. That's the thing. That's the general thing. And the lower fees, what it really means is, most of our, most of the people in this room right now will be using online transactions, Google Pay, Tez, or PayPal, Paytm, or whatever platforms you use. Whenever you send 100 rupees to someone, you just try this process at home. You just send 100 rupees to one account, receive the 100 rupees from the account again, and just do this process for like 200 times. And when you look at the transaction fees, you will be left with like 2,000 plus rupees of transaction fees, even for 100 rupees. But in the real currency, when a farmer actually get 100 rupees and he gives the 100 rupees to a shopkeeper, the shopkeeper gives 100 rupees to a conductor, the conductor gives 100 rupees to a passenger, there is no transaction at all. When human interaction is there is no transaction at all. Similarly, when we are actually processing these fees with this Bitcoin network, even if you send money like let's say that you send 100 crore to someone, the transaction fees will be like so much lesser. You will be even thinking that why are the banks still stealing from me? That kind of stuff. It's like just a fraction of what we actually send. So it's like too limited, and you won't even actually feel any difference at all. That's this thing. And the easy international trade. So whenever we are trading in a foreign country, we will be usually dealing this with gold, or we will be dealing this with what the US dollars, right? So US dollars prices go very, it varies time to time, and it's like a complicated process. But the thing is, when you have Bitcoin, you can actually directly send the Bitcoin to someone from US or Canada or even Australia. Nothing asked, no questions asked, and no answers given. That's it. So you don't have to do any kind of conversion. You don't have to give any broker fees. You don't have to do anything at all. So that's how this cryptocurrency works. And the instant payments. Whenever you are trying to send money via what's it called, the credit card or something, it usually takes like 2 days. For the PayPal stuff, at least it takes like 1 or 2 days. But when you do this transaction with the Bitcoin or with alternative cryptocurrencies, the payment will be like instant. You can actually click the send button, and at the next instant, you can actually see the money popped into the other account instantly. There will be like no delay at all. So that kind of stuff, like it's like instant fast. Now you must be wondering why the government actually banned Bitcoin. What is the reason behind that? Well, that's really a bit, it's a controversial topic, and at the same time, it's like a little bit complicated. So hackers, terrorists can still use cryptocurrency to anonymously trade or anonymously buy weapons. That's one thing. And when every system is converted, for example, if people are still using money, there can be possible for corruptions and bribing. But when cryptocurrency is used, there is no possibility for that. We can actually, it's like transparency, and like a lot of people don't like transparency at all. So that's why most of the governments banned it. Some banned it for the terrorist and other purposes, but some people actually banned this for the other stuff. So I hope you understand. So let's get started. So what do you need to actually start mining? So basically you need a application or a script or something which is called a miner program, and you need a mining rig. A mining rig can be something like a portable pen drive. You can do mining on your mobile phones. You can do it on your computer, your laptops, on your graphics cards, or you also have dedicated hardware for this, which are called ASICs, ASICs. I can actually give the links to in the next section. And the final thing is like mining pool. So I'll just explain this concept. So this is another concept you should be learning. So whenever we are actually, it's like Bitcoin is actually like trying to find a needle in the haystack. So you can actually find a needle, but it's like it may be a golden needle, or it may be like a diamond needle or something. But it's very difficult to find a needle in the golden the haystacks. Some people go, okay, understand. So you can actually bring a magnet, and the needle will attract to the magnet. So that the point is the needle is a diamond needle, so it can't attract to anything. So that's it. It's like very difficult to find. So what you can actually do is you can actually bring in like 1,000 people to work on this. To search for this haystack. And once someone actually finds the needle, they can actually share the reward between those people. So that's how the mining pool works. They actually usually share the stuffs to everyone. So this is the example of a miner program, which is I think this is a CG miner or something. So we have a ton of miners. Some are specified for Windows, some are specified for Linux, some are for ASICs, some are for AMD graphics cards, some are for NVIDIA graphics cards. So we have a ton of options to consider here. So if you are looking into this stuff, you can actually check one of my YouTube videos. We have actually content for this. Okay, so basically these are the hardwares. We can do mining on CPUs. We can do mining on graphics cards. We can also do minings on, this is a portable ASIC, which is like a far more less power consumption, and which is like a it is not very high performance. But the thing is, we can actually do the miners come in a variety of form factors. That's what I'm trying to say to you right now. Okay, and the basic structure, basically the blockchain at the top and the mining pool in the middle, the miner program here, and the hardwares at the lower end. They are the thing actually work for the process. They just do some kind of calculations and that's it. So this is the actual structure of this blockchain, and I hope everyone is completely clear with this idea of blockchain. So here is I mean, like I'm just concluding the blockchain topic here right now, and I hope you understand the basic concepts of what is a peer-to-peer network and how the blockchain actually works. Only then we can actually go to the next topic, which is like from now on, it's not a very big complicated process, but it's like a easy process. Okay. So what is a pandemic? I already told you about this. A pandemic is a disease which usually spreads globally or spreads to a large geographical area. And usually there are a lot of preventive measures to prevent what's it called, a global epidemic or pandemic. But the thing is, most of the time the symptoms will be unrecognized. So that's the main reason for this. Look at this graph right here. So what we are experiencing right now, I mean, like you can look at the red curve right here, which is the current situation in most of the countries right now. So the medical care is insufficient right now. We are all trying to manage. We are all trying to manage to make this curve like a flat line, but it's still impossible. The main reason for this is we are not prepared for this situation. We are not prepared. When Bill Gates said this like 5 years ago, no one actually listened to this. So that's the exact situation right here. And what we are experiencing right now is something like this. And I suspect this is the case for India right now. We thought everything is going normal and we are coming to the close down. But if they actually open the lockdown in a wrong time, we can still go back to the same stage. We can still go back to the same cases. The cases will rise, and we have a ton of problems with this. So that's one general idea. And this is the usual typical case 1 and case 2. So in case 1, each and every student, so here is a girl and here is a boy, each one has no idea that they are like infected. So they are like transmitting the disease to a ton of people. But on the case 2, this person is actually isolated. He's like isolated from the home or from the office or from something, so that the chain does not consider. So you can actually immediately see the difference. You can actually, I mean, the general thing is 50% of the people are unaffected by actually isolating one particular person. That's the general thing. But most of the time when we actually try to isolate a person, it's already too late. We will be informed only after the disease is like 20 plus days over or something, when it's like highly serious. So that's the case with India, and that's the case with most of these countries. So what I am proposing you right now is what's it called, I mean, like a technology to actually prevent this. How we can actually prevent this? So why can't we actually so the reason for why we can't actually achieve case 2 is, I mean, by case 2 I mean this one. We don't have enough resources. The first point is we don't have enough resources to isolate each and every infected person. I think I heard somewhere that India have more than 10 crore population, and we still have 50,000 ventilators. So what if like 1 crore people get infected? We don't have enough sufficient ventilators to put them in, right? So it's like a lack of resources is one thing. And asymptomatic, which means the symptoms are not visible. So if a person is affected, it's only visible at the later stage of this infection. So they will be unaware that they are infected, and they will be spreading this to like multiple persons. And once they spread this to multiple persons, it's very difficult for them to actually, I mean, like we can't track them. So that's the main thing. We can't track a person. We can't track a person in the past. We can track a person once we actually monitor the person, but we can't track a person in the past. So that's why we need blockchain. If we use blockchain, we can actually track a person from the past. How can we actually do that? I'll explain that in a few minutes. So lack of awareness. So the lack of awareness by this means most of the people think that if you get corona, you will be dead. You will be dead. So that's it's not the case actually. So the typical case is Corona, I mean the COVID is a type of common cold, and you also hear this quote from Rajinikanth. Actually, I mean like a common cold is a device. If you treat it, it will be cured in like 7 days. If you don't treat it, it will be gone in like 1 week. So it's like a 7 days or 1 week. That's both the same. So we don't have a common cure for common cold. The main reason for that is it's like a 70 plus virus. I mean like 70 different types of viruses cause common cold. So if you are asked a question, you have a common cold. If I inject you with 70 different injections, and if your common cold is solved, will you accept the injection? So you will be saying that I will be suffering for 1 week without the infection. Thank you for your suggestion. I don't need that 70 plus injections. That's our general opinion. That's the case. It's very costly to actually prepare a vaccine for a common cold. So COVID is a type of common cold, but it's like more severe, and most of the people will recover. If you go to WHO, World Health Organization's official website, they clearly stated that most of the people who have this corona will recover on their own without any medical attention. Some people will get recovered with minimal what's it called? I mean, like a medical attention. Only with people who have previously had like a pneumonia or some kind of respiratory problems will have this kind of, I mean, like severity. So that's one thing. And the final thing is that we have no way to track the person. So that's the thing. So I'm just giving you a solution. So we all actually have, I mean, like, how can we actually find a way to track a person in the past? Can we actually build a time machine to go back to in time so that we can actually monitor? It's impossible right now because we don't have the technology for time travel. So the main thing, what we can do right now is we can use the existing technology. You could have heard this, like people or maybe mobile phone companies are tracking our each and every move. But they are doing this thing for their profit. They will be selling that, okay, this guy named Tamilan has studied in St. Xavier's Catholic College of Engineering. I'm tracking his phone every day. So he usually goes from his home and to his college via bus. So if we can actually target a bike to his personal Facebook page, he may have an idea to buy this bike so that we can get some profit. That's how the social media and the companies actually use. That's why they use cookies. That's why and how Facebook, Google, and other companies are related right now. That's how they track us, and that's how they use our data against us to buy something which we actually don't need at all. So that's how the things work. So what I'm trying to propose here is we are trying to replicate the exact process, but with blockchain, so that the data will be available to everyone, so that anyone can find a cure for this, because the data is the most important asset in our 21st century. So without data, you can't do anything. If Facebook does not have any data about you, it can't target ads to you. If Facebook does not have your location, your geographical location, it cannot show the ads in Tamil language. So that's how Facebook works. That's how YouTube works. That's how every platform works. What I'm trying to say is, whenever we buy a mobile phone, even if it's like a black and white 1100, or if it's like an iPhone 11 or something, the main thing about a mobile phone is that they can communicate. They can actually use wireless frequencies to communicate with each other. So what I'm trying to do is we can implement some protocols like internet protocol, like HTTP, or maybe like a TCP protocol or something, like a blockchain protocol. We can create some kind of a protocol to actually make the device to communicate with each other without a central party. So that if we actually enable this thing, we don't need a centralized party to provide an internet connection for us. We don't need anyone to actually provide a mobile service to us. We can actually handle this on our own. We have the technology, but we are not trying to evolve. That's the problem. Most of the companies are trying to get this covered up as quickly as possible. But with blockchain, anything is possible. That's what my point is. And now I'll just show you how we can actually track a user with with the technology I'm trying to propose right now. Just give me a second. Okay, I hope everyone can see this right now. Okay, what I'm sharing to you right now is the Microsoft Paint, which you have experienced since Windows XP. So imagine how actually the thing is proposed right now. So you have a mobile device. Whenever you are going to somewhere, even some people usually carry the mobile phones to the when they are even when they are like showering, they used to hear some music. When they are going out to the parking lot, when they are going out to like a picnic or something, anywhere, schools, colleges, classrooms, anywhere, they just bring the mobile phones. So if Google can track the mobile phones and if they can actually say this particular location has 200 phones, this location is like heavily trafficked right now. So if they can do this, we can actually have, because we have a, if we combine the total output power of the blockchain network, we have a, I mean, like we have a ton of processing power, which is like far greater than what Google, Microsoft, and other companies together will I mean, like combined together. So we have a ton of processing power. That's my point is. So just consider that this is cell phone one and this is cell phone two, cell phone one and cell phone two. If cell phone and cell phone two comes closer, I mean, like just imagine that like cell phone two is now here. So a cell phone cannot walk. It cannot fly. It can teleport because teleportation is still not possible according to my information. So the thing is, a cell phone can only move if the owner of the cell phone moves. That's the only way a cell phone can actually move. So if we can actually track this movement relationship, and if we can track actually this thing, we can predict, okay, this owner of this phone and this owner of this phone has met like 2 days ago. So one of this owner is like tested positive for corona. So we can actually track this phone to the past like 10 or 20 days since when he actually started, I mean, like got the infection, so that we can actually travel back in like time. I mean, like we can go back in time to see how he interacted with other persons, and we can actually get the data from the blockchain network, so that we can actually, I mean, the general thing is we have the data. If we are using blockchain technology to gather information from the cell phones or from the smartphones, we will be having data so that we can actually traverse back in time to actually find who are all I mean, like the persons who he interacted in the past, so that we can isolate them as well, so that we can actually prevent future what's it called, I mean, like a pandemic. So if we can actually prevent one person, the total linkage will be stopped. If we can actually isolate one person, we may be actually potentially what's it called, I mean, like preventing the disease spread to like 50,000 or plus people. We can't know, because there was a saying that the disease was actually spread from a single person, someone who actually ate a bad soup or something, but I'm not even sure if it's like true or something. But the general thing is this: only one person got infected the first time. Only one person got infected, and right now a lot of people were dead. The main reason for this is like there was like no information, nothing. We had nothing. But if we can embed the blockchain technology, we can actually surpass this pandemics. We were not prepared like 5 years ago. We are not prepared like now, but we can actually prepare this for the future. So if you, I mean, like, so the general thing is, most of the tech companies right now are not investing in medical care or anything, because the main reason for this is, if they implement any kind of technology for something like this, they will be losing ton of money. For example, when we are actually finishing our final year project, we were doing some kind of peer-to-peer what's it called? I mean, like it's a peer-to-peer online trading system. It's similar to Flipkart and similar to Amazon, but it's not owned by any company. Not owned by any company. There is no transaction fees. There is no services. There is nothing. Each and every person can actually start a store from his own home, and he can be a teacher. He can be anything. He can do a lot of stuff. And we actually had this plan for like quite some time, but no investor actually hired for us. I mean, like paid, sponsored us. The main reason they said this, I actually have like 2 crore in my account right now. But the problem is, if I invest 2 crore in our account, you cannot get profit for me. Your project is like a social oriented. We can't fund you because we will not get profit. So they just left. And finally, one guy actually came to me and just got the blueprints and we left, because he said something and went. And after 6 months, I heard the news that it's not Amazon, Facebook and Geo combined together and are launching a platform under their name. So they are like they are actually doing what we actually proposed like 2 years ago, but we didn't actually say this information to a lot of people. But I am not even sure. I'm not saying that they copied my idea or something, or our idea or something. But the general thing is, we had an idea in the past to create a peer-to-peer online trading system, but some company, some corporate, right now decided to make this is a corporate business, and they will be adding transaction fees. They will be adding a ton of fees. You remember Geo, right? When it came, they gave everything for free, and now we are like paying for every. It changed everything. So that's how the corporates work. So the general thing is, blockchain is not owned by anyone at all. Blockchain is completely decentralized. No one is controlling anything. No one is doing anything. There is a lot of applications. The main scope of this is to teach you the basics of blockchain and just give a small hint of how you can actually, I mean, how it can actually help prevent future pandemics and other stuff. That's the main concept of this tutorial, and I just hope you guys you understood this very well. So I'm open to questions right now.
Okay, thank you, Vimal. Wonderful presentation, Vimal. Now, the audience, now you can ask the questions by unmuting your mic, or you can type your queries in the chat window. Audience, participants, please ask your questions by unmuting your audio, or you can type your queries in the chat window. Vimal, lot of positive comments regarding your presentation.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
Wait, they may be asking. Participants, you can ask your queries.
So how to verify my data is not modified or hacked in this blockchain technology? So that's a very, it's a very easy question. So you can rehash the data. So when you rehash the data and compare the hash value with the previous value and with the original value, you can actually see if the, the data is modified or not. For example, you can encrypt the data. Do you know that WhatsApp messages are encrypted right now, so that you can open a person's profile picture and you can see the encryption code. You can actually send a message to the other participant, and they must have the same identical code. That's how the the cryptography technology works. So you can actually create a hash for a file, and you can save the file somewhere else. You can send the file to someone, and they will get the data, and you can also send the hash to that person. They can okay, let's just give me a second. I'll just explain with this board, so that makes a step easier. Okay, so here's the thing. You have a text file. So just let's say that it's a text file. You are finding the hash of this file. You are finding hash of this text file. So you will be outputting some number called X, Y, Z. You will be, it will be a big string, but I guess you understand the concept. So now you will be sending this file to someone over internet, or someone deliver directly via or mail letter or something. You will be sending this file to someone, so that someone will receive this information. Now what you will be doing is you will be sending this hash separately to this person to this person. So this person will do the hash check on this end. So hash of this text file, and they will find a value like H, Y, Z. They will compare this value with your value. If it's like equal, the data is not modified. But if it's like they have like something like X, Y, Z, A or something, this someone actually modified this data in between, and so it's like this data is tampered. So that's how you identify if a data is tampered or not. That's it.
Participants, please interact. So all the participants must enter the feedback. The link already shared to you. So for the certificate, giving feedback is mandatory. Andros, madam, like to speak anything? All the participants are requested to enter the feedback without fail, because while entering the feedback, please verify your details. Andros, madam.
It's a very nice presentation. Can I give some real-time examples of blockchain applications?
Madam,
Hello?
madam, now audible.
Okay, sir. So, other than cryptocurrency and security, any other applications in blockchain?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah, Vimala.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I'll share the. Can someone mute? I hear a lot of background noise. I can't speak. Okay. So one of the application of. Okay. One of the application of blockchain is the Ethereum. You heard about. I mean, like I just explained. I just told a few lines about Ethereum. So if you go to ethereum.com. So this is the official site of Ethereum, which is also a cryptocurrency. Ethereum is completely different from. I mean, like it's like an evolved version of a blockchain. So Ethereum can be programmed. I mean, like each and every block can be programmed so that it can automate some process and it can actually do some kind of intelligent behaviors which normal blockchains cannot perform. For example, I can show you the. I mean, like they have this sorted exactly in this section. So if you Okay. So what is an Ethereum? It just clearly states that with each Ethereum, we can do a ton of stuffs. We can bring a revolution to internet. So what kind of revolution can the Ethereum bring? So, I mean, like this Zoom works perfect for everyone, right? So an internet where money and payments are built in. So what does it mean? What does it really mean? Because we are already using PayPal, Paytm that are integrated, right? But what does this mean exactly? So for example, whenever you are browsing internet, the text feature, the messages, the input, the output are I mean, like they are like built in. They are like not integrated. They are like built in. On the other hand, the payment gateways like PayPal, Paytm, and other stuffs are integrated. They are like an overlay to the other uppermost part of this layer. With Ethereum, if we are trying to recreate internet with Ethereum, we can build an internet where the payment system will be like inbuilt. I mean, like we don't have to depend upon any PayPal system, or we don't have to depend upon any bank system. That's exactly what this line means. You can actually create a developer account on ethereum.com, which is like free and open source, and you can follow the documentations, and you can start developing an Ethereum smart contract right now. I mean, like you can just go to this official website and just start working if you are like really interested. There are a ton of tutorials on YouTube on how to work with Ethereum and how to develop Ethereum stuffs, and they also have some kind of applications here. So cryptocurrency wallets, financial applications, and decentralized markets. So what as a decentralized market means is, for example, we always have some kind of markets in our local what's it called, local village or something. But whenever there is a market, usually they have some kind of association. So whoever actually what's it called, I mean, like sells something in the market should pay a particular amount of money for each and every month they actually do this stuff. So with the decentralized market, there is no one to actually manage them. They manage that. I mean, like they manage with each other with a global consensus. So that's how this thing works, and there is no one to monitor them. So there is no one to actually pay for. I mean, like they ask for the commission charges or broker charges. So that's one application for this thing. And we also have a ton of games with Ethereum. So whenever a game is created with Ethereum, basically they will be having some kind of whenever you are playing a game, you will be earning some kind of points, right? But instead of this, you will be earning real, I mean, like virtual currencies. You can actually use that virtual currency to buy something in the real world or something similar to that. An internet where users can own their data. So as I already told you, if I encrypt a file and send it to you, and if I did not give you the encryption key, the data which you have is like pointless. It's like pointless. You can't decrypt the file without the encryption key unless you have like a very super powerful computer from, I mean, like the most powerful computer in the world, and it still takes like more than 21,000 years to actually decrypt the file. So it's like encryption is like light years away from being processed right now, decrypted right now. So that's one thing. No one can, you will have the data and no one else can steal the data or spy on you with Ethereum. So I mean the baseline is the blockchain and the smart contracts. That's what I'm trying to say. An internet where everyone has access to an open financial system. So for example, whenever we are using what's it called, the financial section, for example, recently I heard some information about a few people's loan for like 60,000 crores Indian rupees was like cancelled for some reasons. I'm not even sure why they actually cancelled the reasons. But I also heard an information from my mother yesterday. She also actually called me like 10 late night 10 p.m. So she called me and said that, did you pay your electricity bill? Because if you actually fail to what's it called? I mean, like pay it on time, they will be fining like too much right now. So I'm just wondering why they are like leaving fine on people like normal citizens, and why they are like what's it like? I mean, like they canceling the loan amount for like a high rich people. How is this system working? So that's like a very closed loop, and we are not exposed to that kind of stuff. And this is the thing. If we have a blockchain, no one can do something like this at all. So that's one advantage of using this smart contracts and blockchains and other stuff. And internet built on neural open access infrastructure controlled by no company or person. For example, there was a confusion and conspiracy theory during the last election that the Facebook actually promoted such, I mean, like a section of this, one section of the party. So there was a very big problem, and Mark Zuckerberg was asked to actually report to the senator house or something. So a lot of trouble was happened to Facebook, and they just changed their terms and conditions after that. So with a blockchain technology, no one will be spying on us. The data will be available to us, so that we will be the owner of our information, or I mean the data, and it will be like a open access infrastructure. That's what this exactly means. So that's the general thing, and this is a real life. This is live right now. You can just go to the developer website and just go and start working on the project. I mean, like you can create a project on GitHub, or you can actually go to Bitcoin, and you can clone the repository. It's like 200 GB right now. If you have the storage space for like 200 GB, you can actually start cloning the entire ledger, which will have the entries from 2009, and you can start working on the project, whichever works the best for you. So that's, you can do that.
Thank you, Vimal.
Any more queries from the participants? Anthony sir, any more instruction? Anthony sir?
Hi, Vimal. Vimal,
Anthony sir is.
Hello, sir.
Vimal, hi.
Hi, sir.
நல்லா இருக்கல?
நல்லா இருக்கு சார்.
Okay. Nice presentation. Thank you very much.
இல்ல அது நான் நல்லா பண்ண மாதிரி எனக்கு ஃபீல் ஆவே இல்ல. ஃபர்ஸ்ட் டைம் பண்ண மாதிரி இருந்துச்சா?
டாபிக் வந்து நான் தான் யூஸ் பண்ணேன். நல்லா இருந்துச்சு. நல்லா மக்களுக்கு வந்து ரீச் ஆயிடுது. பிட்காயின்ல அப்படியே கவர் பண்ணி கொண்டு வரல. வெரி குட்.
Thank you, sir.
Super. And also feedback on எல்லாரும் போட்டுருக்காங்க பாருங்க.
Okay, see participants, please enter the feedback. Till now 79 participants entered, 80 participants entered the feedback. I think more than 100 participants today. So I request all of you to enter the feedback. Now we can move to the concluding session. First, I thank the guest speaker of today's session, Vimal. Vimal, thank you very much. Wonderful presentation and clear presentation also. We enjoyed it well.
Thank you.
So, my heartfelt thanks to you, Vimal. Vimal?
Thank you so much, sir.
Okay,
Thank you,
Vimal. Then for the participants, today we have a power seminar at 2 p.m. It is organized by ICT in association with our software cell of St. Xavier's Catholic College of Engineering. So all are invited for the power seminar. So the link is available in the same web page, that is hxcc.edu.in/software cell. Then for the tomorrow session, we have the webinar on introduction to an open source numerical framework, OpenFOAM. And the day after tomorrow, the webinar on data stream clustering with R. Then the Friday we have an webinar on an interesting topic. It's a general topic. We are having mobile phones with us, so we thought why can't we have a webinar on how to be secured with our digital devices. So for that we have a webinar on coming Friday. So with that we may be concluding for the this week webinar series, and we may be continuing in the next Monday onwards. So in each week there will be a super session that will be addressed by any of industry people like Vimal. So I hope that you all are enjoying the webinar series. I thank all the participants. I thank our management, our principal, deans, HODs, and all the faculty members and all the participants here. I thank everyone. Once again, thank everyone. Thanks a lot. Varun?
Thank you, sir.
Okay, well, I forgot to thank Varun because he is hosting everything. And all the background work are done by Anthony Jones Kumar sir. All the feedback, then the hosting of this webinar and certificate designing, browser designing, everything will be done by Varun. I thank Varun also. Also, I thank Andros madam for arranging Vimal as the guest for today's webinar session and all her support. Thank you, madam. Thank you, Varun. Thank you, Anthony sir. Okay, we can wind up, Varun. Bye.
Thank you, sir.
Have a nice day.